there we go. Orientation is locked. Rotate device back. Oh, my bad. Wow. Here I am, doing it like a real YouTube video. When it's supposed to be like this. Who knew? I did not. Learning experience, am I right? Ha ha ha. Wow, okay, there we go. Sorry for the commotion, those of you that are watching back. Okay. Wow. Now I know. Shows how many YouTube lives I watch, because I did not know that this is how I needed to set it up. So next time I do. Okay, hi, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I just want to talk about trauma. And I don't love this setup, so I'm going to refrain from hating it and continuously trying to fix it past this very moment. No. Past this moment. Okay. I wanted to chat just a little bit about trauma. Because it's become abundantly clear to me that a lot of people don't really know what it is. Sorry, I'm still tripped out about the phone situation. I guess I just assumed that it would videotape long ways. But hopefully this video will still be available for those of you that want to watch it once this is recorded. Okay, anyhows. We're going to talk about trauma, and we're just going to talk about what it is. I'm not going to get into, like, the depths of specifics as much as, like, what is trauma and how can we help create a more accepting and validating world for people that have experienced it in all of its different facets. Disclaimer, definitely feel like I need to say this. I am not a therapist, and my saying that two things are valid, like both of them being valid, doesn't mean that I'm comparing them and saying that they're the same as each other. So just keep that in mind. Now, before we get into all this good stuff, I just want to go ahead and encourage you to like, to subscribe, and to click the bell, because I do post regularly, but I don't post on a schedule. So if that sounds, if like this content and this content that I put out is really interesting to you, I highly, highly suggest that. Lastly, I am going to be pulling a tarot card at the end of this, as I do offer tarot readings. And if you're interested in a tarot reading of your own, you could go ahead and go to calendly.com/mysticalmac, and you can book a tarot reading there. But here, I'll just give us a general one-card reading to close us out, as I do with all my other videos. Okay. So let's just start off with, we've had honestly, language is ever evolving, and our language in particular, it has evolved so much just in the 28 years that I've lived on this planet. And it continues to do so, because without the evolution of language, we don't evolve as a species. And so what words mean literally and figuratively, meaning their connotations. So what they've come to mean to people, the feeling that they've come to give people. For example, the word death has a very specific connotation for mostly everybody. It's a sense of dread, right? But the literal definition of death doesn't necessarily need to evoke a sense of dread. So that's what I mean by connotation. Trauma has gained such fame for labeling really, really, really rough things like, war and SA and, echo, stop. I'm forever setting reminders that I need, obviously, because I'm going to go and have to figure out what that was. Thank you. trauma has gained a reputation for meaning really, really rough and scary things that undoubtedly would shake any of us to our core. However, it's gaining that reputation has done nothing for our greater understanding of what trauma actually is. Because the truth of the matter is that when you take trauma down to its definition, not its connotation, right? Its connotation, for what I would guess is a good majority of people, it gives them this sense of like, oh, SA, capital R, witnessing something horrendous like someone being unalived, or like any of those just completely horrific, basically unimaginable things. While those things certainly deserve to be attributed with the word trauma, they are not the ultimate definition and the ultimate example of what trauma actually is. Because when you look at the definition of trauma, which is where we were at, it's a distressful or disturbing situation, a very distressful or disturbing situation. All that means is you're feeling a bunch of negative stuff that you don't really know how to navigate. And when we become traumatized, it's because we've left those feelings hanging there unaddressed for a period of time. And so you can have trauma without being traumatized. If you figure out or are helped in moving through your feelings, through those large, difficult feelings, then chances are you're going to have experienced the trauma, but you're not going to remain traumatized. With all that said, most of us, again, as adults, have a really difficult time fathoming that trauma can actually be caused by really tiny things, especially when we are in childhood. And that's my thing that I wanted to bring up, is that not only is trauma subjective, but a lot of our trauma actually stems from childhood. And a lot of the triggers that we experience in adulthood, they started out in childhood because we came to countless experiences where we had big, deep feelings that nobody knew how to help us move through. Now, like an example of a seemingly unimportant, and I put that in air quotes because it's seemingly unimportant on the outside looking in, but to the person experiencing it, it was extremely disturbing and distressful. And it's this example of like, quote, mild, quote, childhood trauma. And to some people, this literally might be, quote, insignificant, quote, but I'm going to call it mild. I've been an artist my whole life, and when I was in grade school, I was really proud of a drawing I did, and a kid in class asked to see it after school. I gave it to him, just like thinking nothing of it. He completely ripped it in front of my face. I was distraught. I was like genuinely so hurt that anybody would even do that. Mean actions have never made sense to me. Like as a kid, it genuinely confused me, boggled my mind as much as calculus does, how people can just act like that. But that's like an example of a moment that some people, and someone even did try to on my Instagram, would say like, wow, that's so insignificant. Like, how dare you call it trauma? And you know what? It wasn't insignificant, because till this day, if I still remember it and it emotionally impacts me enough that I'm bringing it up right now and using it as an example of trauma, then it's fucking trauma. And trauma, like I said, it is subjective. It's in the eye of the person who experiences it. So, regardless of one individual's view of trauma, we do nothing for the advancement of our species. We do nothing for creating a world where mental health matters and where caring about people's well-being over how much money they can make you actually is a thing. It helps nobody to invalidate and just completely pass over experiences that 100% made people feel trauma, simply because we ourselves wouldn't feel traumatized in that particular situation. So really remembering that trauma is super subjective, and this is so important when we deal with children. The most important when we deal with children, because things that we don't perceive to be anything are big things to them. And if we don't validate that they are big things, those kids will grow up feeling like their inner world doesn't matter. Like, well, first of all, they'll definitely end up having to work that trauma out later in life in adulthood, but they'll end up feeling like, their inner world doesn't matter, that they shouldn't pay attention to their inner world. They'll probably gaslight themselves. There's a slew of nonsense that goes on when we invalidate children because we as adults don't see how that experience could be distressful and disturbing to them. Trauma in adulthood, of course, tends to happen due to more severe things because we've built our, hopefully we've built our emotional faculties and our mental faculties to function somewhat on a peaceful degree. That is not the truth for most people in my experience, but that is where I'm going. So, if a stranger online now is like, your art sucks, like, I'm no longer that child that's like, no. However, if I get essayed or whatever, obviously, trauma. Now, how to deal with trauma. Therapy is the best thing, genuinely. Whether it's self-led, via books you're reading, or whatever, or it's group, or it's individual, whether you get it pro bono, or, through an app, or you go to, like, a school or something that does, like, some sort of graduate program where you could get it for a lesser cost. Like, any way you get it, it's brilliant. 100% recommend. The only way is through, my friends. You do not go around your trauma. You don't leap over it. You can't dig under it. You must go through it. So, you got this. My final thoughts. Gatekeeping trauma and, like, what it is and isn't, super not helpful. And it definitely, like, it's not helpful, and it already doesn't do any good because that person is feeling the way that they're feeling. Like, if you've ever been feeling something and someone told you not to feel it, it probably didn't make you stop feeling that. So to tell someone, oh no, you weren't traumatized, it's not going to make the trauma go away. It's not going to make them feel like this world gives a shit about them. It's probably going to, like, create the opposite. So if you want to create people who feel like the world doesn't care about them and therefore they shouldn't care about the world and how they treat people, then I guess that's a choice. Not my choice, though. My choice would be to validate and support and to be self-aware how we treat others and how we treat ourselves. As we model better behavior, as we validate people's traumas, regardless of what the cause of it may be and whether we feel like it's insignificant or significant, as long as we validate and accept and give them that companionship, the tools they need to move through that trauma, we will be modeling that behavior to the little ones of this world who will hopefully carry it on and cultivate a world where people care about mental health, and where people genuinely want to help each other, grow and be comforted and be cared for. And those children will likely even grow into less traumatized adults because of this behavior being modeled to them. So that's brilliant. Yeah. Thank you so much. That is all I've got on the subject of trauma. I just wanted to hop on here and nail down what it really is, because when I learned about this concept, so many things opened up for me and I realized, like, wow, okay. So as much as my childhood was lovely, there were sincerely moments, lots and lots and lots of moments where I just felt big things because I am a big, big feeler, and none of those moments, or not none, but a grand majority of those moments went very unresolved for me because the people that surrounded me just didn't have the tools to help such a big feeling individual like myself, in that moment in time. And I've had to work through a lot of that stuff as an adult, but now I know. And I'm certain that the kids that I've nannied and babysat, and my own children in the future, are 100% better for my expanding my viewpoint on what trauma actually is. So I hope that that helped you out, or in the very least piqued your curiosity, maybe taught you something new. And now let's just do a very quick tarot card. Yeah, okay, let's do it. What is our send-off message? That was fast. Okay. 8 of Wands. Ooh, brilliant. Okay. So the 8 of Wands, here we have a card that is full force creativity. First of all, Wands is a suit that has to do with fire, which has to do with inspiration, creative energy, inner fire, like, that lust for life, the things that really get us going. And as you can see, this card holds a lot of momentum. You have this beautiful rainbow raven, which totally reminds me of Hocus Pocus 2, anyone? And they are just bearing down on the earth, bringing down fire. Now, this deck is based on folklore, and I believe that this raven is sacrificing themselves for the greater good, basically. And I'm not going to go and say as much as that because, in my opinion, my journey here is also to empower you to have healthy boundaries and to keep the self-sacrifice to literally, like, your child needs you to sacrifice yourself for them, your family member needs you to, like, somebody really important to you, like, needs a kidney or something. We do not self-sacrifice willy-nilly here. So, in fact, what this card is calling us to do is go at whatever you're going with major fire, but with major discernment, okay? Like, these wands in the picture here, as well as the raven himself, they're not aiming willy-nilly. They're not aiming ever which way. They are literally aiming in a very specific place. They're going somewhere with intention, and the powers that be are literally behind them. You can see all these energies behind them. They're creating this beautiful force as they come down, and they're going to shake the ground. And now the ground is frozen here. What happens when things are frozen? They're still, they're hard, they're immobile. Okay, so right now you're being called to shake up your world. Whatever that means to you, shake up that world, okay? Go ahead and do that creative project that makes you feel really excited. Or maybe it's not a creative project. Maybe it's that book you've really, really been wanting to read, or that person you've really been wanting to reconnect with. Whatever makes you feel closer to the beauty and joy of this life, go ahead and pursue that with full force, but with intention, all right? If you're going to reach out to that person, go ahead and maybe like write down in a notes app what you're going to say before you say it. If it's been a long time, or if the last time you talked, it didn't go so great. Don't do it so much. The energy right now isn't just fire for fire's sake. It's like kindling a campfire or creating a warm, cozy fireplace. You're being very intentional about how you're placing those logs and how you're lighting that flame. So light the flame of your life. Break up this tundra, this stagnant energy that you've got going on right now, and watch as you make room for the brilliant miracles that come your way. Thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate you. If this intrigued you and you would like a tarot reading all of your own, go ahead and go to calendly.com/mysticalmac, and I would love to provide that for you. I'm doing them by donation right now. And if this intrigued you, please please subscribe. And please click the bell if you're interested in knowing when I post, because I post regularly, very regularly, but not on a schedule. Yeah, thank you so much for expanding your view of trauma today with me, and stay mystical, stay grounded. I will certainly catch you next time, and hopefully on more of these lives. Mwah!